Hello, everybody. This is Catholic Dad, episode number 254. We are so soft. So, I went to Adoration tonight, it's Friday night, and I was reading the Gulag Archipelago while I was there. If anybody needs a reminder, Alexander Solzhenitsyn was a good Soviet soldier that fought against the Germans, and he was thrown in a death camp for questioning why so many good Russian comrades were being killed by the Stalinist regime. And he questioned it in a private letter to his friend that the government intercepted. He was tried under Article 58 and went to the gulags. And he spent 8 years in a gulag, almost dying of cancer, but not dying of cancer. And eventually he got out, and he became the most prolific writer in the 20th century, and probably the greatest writer in the 20th century, if not all the way back to St. Thomas Aquinas. He was a really great man. But he was talking today in the Gulag Archipelago how the German soldiers were defecting and fighting for the Russians, and the Russian soldiers were defecting and fighting for the Germans, and that everybody was a spy, and everybody was being tried by governments and being thrown away into like prison camps and being killed and shot, being worked to death and starved. And he was saying, it seems really weird that, a Russian would give up their country and run and fight for another country against their own country, or it seems weird that a German would do the same thing. And essentially he said, but don't judge these people, that unless, of course, you've spent time in a prison cell alone, in a cold, dark prison cell, dank and damp, and to the point where you feel like you're about to freeze to death, and that if a bat flew into the prison cell, that you would capture it so you could eat its wings because you were so hungry, and that you would take your boot and you would chew the boot to quell your hunger pangs. That if you haven't ever felt the desire to chew off the wings of a bat or eat your own boot, then you probably shouldn't be commenting on the motivations and the tendencies of soldiers at war. Because when governments grab you and they oppress you and they throw you into camps and you don't know who your friend or who your enemy is and you're starving, you will go to great lengths for a meal, and you'll go to great lengths to try to taste freedom and try to get out of the situation and move to a better position. We in America, we're so soft. And it's not just America, it's almost the entire globe these days, that we sit there and we can look at the Russians and the Germans who defected and fought for the other country, be like they're traitors, the espionage, they're horrible people. Essentially, they were stolen from their families, and they were told they have to fight against the enemy, who they didn't even know who the enemy was. And for us to sit there and say we know how horrible they were, the espionage and how much they were traitors, we are so soft, we're so weak, because most Americans, if you take away their NFL on Sunday, they'll be willing to turn in their neighbor for NFL. Now we're not even talking food or the basic sustenance of life. We're not talking food or water. We're not talking freedom. We're not talking getting out of a cold, horrible prison cell that's hell. That literally it's dank and it's wet and it's freezing cold, and you're not allowed to talk to anybody, and you're sitting there dying of cancer and pain. So, Americans, or everybody else who's listening to this, you are soft. And the reason I'm not saying you're soft because, you're mentally weak. I'm saying you're soft because you've never had hardship in your life. Those of you out there who say, I grew up in the ghetto and, I've had so difficult compared to you. Yeah, maybe not. But bottom line is you haven't sat time in a gulag. They don't exist anymore. You haven't had to eat the wings off of a bat or chew your own boot to quell your hunger pangs. And if you do that, then maybe you can start commenting. But if you sit there and you're slightly overweight, right, because most people are, you're slightly overweight, and you could sit there and look at other people and tell them how hateful they are, how judgmental they are, well, maybe you should look at yourself first before you start looking at other people. Because don't judge other people. Just don't do it. And again, your metric is this. If a bat flew into your room right now, would you knock it out of the air so you could eat its wings? If the answer is yes, then maybe you can start judging other people. If the answer is no, then you know what? You shut your mouth, you get to church, you get the Mass, you pray the daily rosary, and you try to live a sacramental life. If the answer is no, that you've never been in that situation, then you can't possibly know the hell of what you would do to get out of the hell that can be created by your fellow man and your fellow government. So this is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Please live a sacramental life, get to Mass, and live a holy life. God bless you all.